So in September of 2019, I went to Crossroads Guitar Festival with my dad. This is something that we had wanted to do for years and years, over a decade. When I was young, my dad and I really connected over guitar as I started playing guitar, and that was right around the time that the Crossroads Festival kicked off. And so we would buy the DVDs whenever a new one would come out, and we would watch them on repeat. And I have a lot of really fond memories of watching those performances with my dad. And so in 2019, when the Crossroads Festival happened, we bought tickets and we went as a father-son trip. And the first night of the festival, the headliner was Jeff Beck. Now, I'd never seen Jeff Beck before. I was obviously aware of him and his prominence and his influence. He was my favorite guitarist, but I had not really listened to a lot of Jeff's music up until that point. And so I was kind of coming into it green. I didn't know what to expect. Now, the cool thing about that night was our friend Rick Beato was there with us, and Rick is friends with Dave Natal, who is the front of house engineer for Jeff Beck. So we got to watch Jeff at Crossroads that night, standing next to the mixing console. It's literally something I will never forget. I remember everything about Jeff Beck's performance. I remember being just blown away when he came out on stage and started to play, and hearing that guitar sound. His guitar sound in the room, in person, is unforgettable. Those of you that have seen him live know what I'm talking about. Nobody sounds like Jeff Beck. And it's impossible to overstate the influence that Jeff Beck had over his career. You know, he joined the Yardbirds in 1965, replacing Eric Clapton. At the time, that was a huge step forward in his career, and it only lasted for a little over a year before he left the Yardbirds. And for many players, that sort of would have been the end of their career, leaving one of the biggest bands at the time. But for Jeff Beck, that was just the start. And over the coming decades, he would go on to write and record some of the most influential guitar-based music out there and influence many of the guitar heroes that are around today. So I just want to make a quick tribute video to Jeff Beck and his playing. And I want to point out one video clip here that I think perfectly illustrates the brilliance of Jeff Beck's playing. This is from the Crossroads Festival in 2007. It's a pretty famous clip with Tal Wilkenfeld. The fact that he's playing, doing volume swells, and using the whammy bar at the same time with his right hand is something that I'll never understand how that's possible. I remember after seeing him at Crossroads, I came home and was inspired and tried to kind of wrap my hands around that and figure out how to do that. And it's just impossible. You can't sound like Jeff Beck. Such a unique approach to the guitar. And he was always innovating and always looking for that new sound. If you look at his discography, his records over the decades, every one is a little bit different than the last. He's not just resting on his laurels of what he did back in the 60s and 70s. He was constantly looking for something new. And that's also reflected in his band. For example, this moment here where Tal Wilkenfeld takes a solo, it's like he's sort of using his platform as a guitar legend to usher in, you know, the next generation of players at the time. And it's a really beautiful moment. truly was one of the greatest guitar players ever. A real guitar hero, a true legend. Tyler Larson from Music Is Wind tweeted this morning something that I thought was a pretty good way to summarize Jeff's influence. He says, "You can tell who the best guitarist is when the best guitarists say that person is actually the best." For many people, Jeff Beck is your favorite guitarist's favorite guitarist. No one will ever sound like he sounded. No one will ever do what he did with the instrument. He was truly one of a kind, and he will be greatly missed. And the fact that I got to see him live, I will be forever grateful for. I mean, I will be able to say for the rest of my life that I got to see Jeff Beck play. And I think that's pretty special. So in the description box down below, I'll have some videos linked that I think are really, really great examples of Jeff Beck. My friend Rick has a great video that he did a few months ago actually on why it's impossible to sound like Jeff Beck. I'll have that linked down below. Rest in peace, Jeff. You will be missed.